So welcome and thank you for joining us for this Create Good session. I'm really excited about talking about this issue. I think we all potentially have trolls in our lives right now about whether you believe that the economy should open up or not, and how our government is dealing with the coronavirus. So whether this is something that you can use in your own personal life or on your professional social media channels, I really hope that this is something that works really, really well for you. Get rid of my face. Okay. So, you want to participate in the polls? So we just did that trivia, but you're going to have other opportunities throughout this presentation to participate in polls. So you want to go to pollev.com/Dawn Crawford 356, and Michelle will be dropping that in the presentation in the chat box a couple times so that you can use that throughout the presentation. So BCDC Ideas, we're a full-service communications agency that works exclusively with nonprofits across the country. We are the hosts of Create Good, and we're very thankful that we get to have this opportunity for everybody to come together and learn new nonprofit skills, right? And I think that we're very thankful for that, and that we feel very fortunate that our whole life is dealing with nonprofits. And so we do everything and anything that our communications director should, would, could do. And we're ready to support you now or in the future. And, I really hope that you consider working with us on your next project. So why do I get to talk about trolls? So I started my career, I didn't start my career. It was about mid-career. It was my first communications director job that I was working for a pro-vaccine organization. So it was a childhood vaccine organization. This was in 2008. So it was right at the beginning of Jenny McCarthy coming out strong against vaccines. She came out in 2006 about saying that her son had received autism from the MMR vaccine. And she was a huge American voice, along with Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who was a doctor in England, who is science and since been debunked, but just a really bad time for vaccines. And I came on to an organization in 2008, working with trying to manage this message. And this was actually during the last recession too. So it was a really interesting time of using really low cost tools to really try to promote my organization. And so, going online, going on Twitter, like facing down trolls and talking to people about vaccines, and really talking to folks about how to quell their fears about vaccines, and then also just how to manage a lot of hate and fear online. So since then, with BCDC Ideas, we've actually always had a vaccine client. We've always worked in this space of talking about science and emotion and fear in very real ways. So now we're working with the National HPV Vaccination Coalition and our roundtable, and so we're working on pro-HPV vaccination messages for kids who are 9 to 12 years old. So it's interesting to see this work, and also I've seen that troll area kind of evolve over time. But we also work with a bunch of other issues. We work in climate change, which is incredibly controversial. We've worked with abortion issues, with child education, with education in general. So, we've worked in a lot of really controversial areas. And I think our approach to managing comments online is really come from spending so much time talking about it and thinking about it, and really hoping to get inside the heads of people who don't believe in the messages that you're sharing. So this is our first poll. So, A or B, so you can either go on the Poll Everywhere app or you can text it in, but have you ever had an uncomfortable conversation online? This could be professionally, it could be personally. I mean, have you ever, has it all been peachy keen and you just love it and everybody loves you and everybody thinks you're great? I'm so jealous of that 12%. That's fantastic. I'm definitely in the A category. Have had a lot of uncomfortable conversations online. Have even had some this week about, friends asking me why I feel that we should stay at home longer for COVID and why, this is important. So And I think for the folks who are saying that they haven't had an uncomfortable conversation online, I hope that this really gives you an opportunity to be able to, learn some new skills, so that if you ever do have an uncomfortable conversation, that you can manage that. Okay, so another poll. So what do you like talking about? What do you like most about talking about your mission? So go ahead and put in some answers there. So this is kind of, helping you remember why you love what you do at work. Why do you love talking about your mission? Why do you love talking about your organization? What do you think where's your power? Ooh, I like that. No one else in our city does work like we do. I actually believe in it. Absolutely. I think it's something I found in my vaccine work, when I finally got to work for the organization, is just how much it's my personal passion. Helping people, great. Nice. Ooh, equity is our mission statement. I like it. Policy for public health. Getting others excited to become advocates too. Absolutely, right? This idea of how do you empower and excite people to care about your mission so much. Great, these are fantastic. So these are all really great things, right? And these are things that we're passionate about sharing. And these are things that we believe in and hold true and hold as our North Star in the work that we do every day, right? That there's so much good in the world, and that you spend your 40 plus hours a week on these good things. So in your organization, what percentage of your comments online are positive, right? So we're looking at the positive side, right? So, so great, positive. We're still in this kind of positive space. Fantastic. Well, good. I'm glad to see most of this group is in that 80 to 100%, right? And even inching up to that, 25 to 50%. So, really the majority of your comments are positive. So I think that's something that is going to be really important to think about. And for the folks who are in that 0 to 25%, that's what we're going to talk about today, as some ways of really managing that. But that, that when you do get a negative comment, that it is a minority of your comments. Remember that? Like, always remember that. I know it's human nature to focus on the negative, but that yes, a broad percentage of people care about your organization. So the reality is, and I think all of us need to live with this truth, is that we are all trolls. So a troll is somebody who's online, who's sharing either misinformation or misinformed information, or just passionate, vile comments. And that in reality, we are all trolls. And I know that's really hard for communicators to hear, but it's very true, because every single nonprofit issue has somebody who doesn't believe in that, and that there's always somebody that disagrees, even in childhood cancer, even in things you think that are like, yeah, we work with a no-kill cat shelter. So even in that, there's still controversy. So let's do a poll. We're going to do a poll actually on here. We're going to try this one. So toilet paper. Everybody loves toilet paper right now. You can go on poll and toggle it down. And, is polls, is it over or under? Do you load your toilet paper over or under? Okay, good. So see, even in the great toilet paper controversy of 2020, there are still folks who really believe that toilet paper needs to be under. Okay, so what do you call this? Do you call this Coca-Cola? Do you call it Coke? Do you call it soda? Do you call it Pepsi? Do you call it gross? What's your answer? What, in different regions of the country, Coca-Cola and Coke is called different things. Some people call it straight out Pepsi, it's soda, it's pop. So what is it to you? Is it Coca-Cola? Is it soda? Is it something else? So even something simple as this, right? We have people who disagree, who say it in different ways. And, we have 21% of folks saying that this is soda. So it's a regional difference, right? It's a regional way of how you see the world. This one is going to get tougher. So do you agree with the Women's March? Do you agree with these women and for what they believe in? So we have 10% of folks on the phone today who do not believe with their stance on this activity, right? So I think that is something that's also incredibly important to remember, is that, even amongst your group, that there are people who you're sitting next to folks who don't necessarily agree with you. Okay, how about this one? What about pro-life folks? So do you agree with pro-life marchers? This one's getting closer, right? So we have 77% that said no and 23% that said yes. So again, 1 in 4 of the folks who are participating in these polls believe, and that is incredibly important to honor and to notice and to make attempt to let also coexist as your supporters. So do you agree with this symbol? Okay, so 81% voted. We have 90% that said no, 10% that said yes. And our last symbol, oops. Oh no, it killed me on this one. Okay, so it didn't let me do it, it's fine. So I think the lesson of this is that we're in an era of opinion. It is something that we all need to recognize as nonprofit professionals, is that opinion is incredibly important. So is facts, so is science. Don't get me wrong, I'm a healthcare communicator, I'm a science communicator, but it's also opinion is incredibly important. So inside the mind of somebody who's, not totally believing in your organization. So why are we seeing more doubt? I think that's something that we do need to kind of understand about society in general, is that we are seeing more doubt. We are seeing more people who are voicing their opinions louder, stronger, and with more passion than they've ever done it before. And certainly it's because of social media, and the ability for people to comment anonymously. But, it's also that, yes, there's just a lot of factors right now. So why do we see more doubt? That I think fear dies slowly. That when people are afraid, and truly afraid for their health, for their family's health, for the health of their economy and their community, is that it takes a long time for them to get over that. It takes a long time for people to heal. If you think about your own personal trauma, if you got in a car accident, like how long does it take you to get over that fear, right? And that if you feel like you've experienced trauma from something that deals with an issue or a mission, that it takes a long time to heal. So definitely remember that. That there's also the nature of scientific reporting. And I think we're also really living that with COVID right now, is that scientists' jobs are to outsmart and science each other, right? I think so. Every good scientific experiment has a hypothesis and then the conclusion. And the conclusion usually outlines ways that they think that possibly their results are wrong. it's really hard, and that scientists often, dig into those conclusions and retest things, right? And so it's the nature of science that things need to be retested, and that science is never ever completely right, that we never ever know exactly in definitive things that things are right. And then also the nature of media outlets, we just don't have the quality control of journalists and editors and reporters that we did before, much less, not really totally understanding where our sources are. So, that the nature of scientific reporting has changed a lot. If you think about like mammograms over the last 5 to 10 years, it's very confusing about when you actually are supposed to get a mammogram. It's very, very hard to figure that all out. And that facts don't always work. And that's something that's really hard for people who are really scientific minded, or communicators in general, right? We like facts. We like things that are real and true and honest. And that people often lean into faith, and whether that's religious faith or personal faith or faith in an idea, right? And that research shows that bombarding people with more evidence about safety and science may make them more resistant to your message. It's hard to hear, right? That just giving people more facts, like if I just give them the right fact, that hopefully they'll get it, isn't actually the case. So when we're talking about trolls, and we're talking about people who don't believe in your mission and you want to bring them around, we really have to look at it in a very different way. So what are people thinking who are not believing in your issue? I think that there are different information and different perspectives. So one of my favorite stories is that one of my very, 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 very best friends is a libertarian. I am very much a Democrat, progressive, not hardcore progressive. I'm a Democrat. I'm an old Dem. And so we do not see the world in the same way. She is very interested in self-preservation, a preservation of herself and her family. And I am very community focused. I am very much about making sure that the whole community lifts, that all boats float. And, but, that I still love and value my friend. I think that her perspective on the world is so valuable because I can understand more about my perspective by having that friendship. Also, the people are trying to protect their families and themselves. I think a lot of the reopen state protests are really about protecting themselves and their family, that these are folks who are being directly economically impacted by stay-at-home measures and by social distancing, and that they are genuinely trying to protect themselves and their community, and that it is depends on how you feel about whether it's at the cost of life. And I think, it really is about self-preservation. And I think that's where a lot of people, when people get really angry and really mad, it's about them losing something, a potential of losing something. The abortion movement is a lot about that. It's about the opportunity that I could lose the opportunity to have an abortion, and that all women, but that also, it really gets to you when you think about that, you could lose that opportunity. And then some have genuinely experienced trauma. So I think right now, a lot of us are experiencing trauma. It's really hard to do what we're doing right now, of staying home and being away from the people we love and the people we like and the people we work with. But I think furthermore, right, that if somebody really feels that they've been damaged by a vaccine, if they really feel like they've had a bad medical treatment, if they really feel that climate change measures are impacting their family because they work in coal or oil or something like that, that they're experienced trauma. And so I think just remembering that these people are different from you is also really important when engaging folks who have negative comments online. So also, as a society, our trust has shifted. And this is something that is really, really valuable for all nonprofit people to really, truly understand, is that we change who we trust over time. So you can see in this really cool Pew Research survey is that, how the trust in government climbs among Democrats and Republicans. And over time, how it flips and switches, but also how over the last, what is that, 50 years, 60 years, it's how much of a decline. People just do not trust the government. They do not trust that, and that counts for like CDC, FDA, the government, all those folks, right? They just don't trust them like they did in the 50s and 60s. And then also we think about who's authority, right? Who's the person who gets to hold the truth? And that is really what this is all about. It's truly about who holds the truth. And that also changes over time, which is fascinating. So year to year, Edelman puts out the trust barometer, which is a beautiful, really cool thing. They have it over a long time. And so as you can see, it goes up and down. So we still value technical expertise and academic experts, but people, you and me, your neighbor, your friend who's in your baby group and your play group, your folks who are at church, those folks are more trusted than financial analysts, successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, boards of directors, journalists, and government officials. So people trust real people more than your board of directors, your journalists, and the government. They believe that their friends, their family, and their kind of close-knit circle are the people who hold the trust and hold the real truth for them. And then also, I think people are also losing trust in social media. So when it first came out, people definitely believed in it, definitely like this number will change a lot. I think even from 2018 to 2020, with Russia infiltrating and just kind of getting in the nooks and crannies of the internet, I do think that we're losing more trust in social media. The problem with that for nonprofits is that's how we're communicating, right? So if you're trying to build trust on social media and it's just through your Facebook posts and it's just through sharing facts on social media, then that's going to be really tough, right? Because people are like, I don't know. I mean, I saw it on Facebook, but I don't really know if I believe it. So that's kind of where this really impacts. So we have another poll here. So one word, what's an issue that you defend passionately? So these are also all the hot button issues in our society, right? Right? So it's about equality, education, the environment, immigration, housing, security, food, water. Like these are the things that we all have passionate thoughts about, passionate things that we stand tall on and that we're willing to defend passionately. And that's the thing, right? We all have our thing that we defend passionately. And it's how we address the questions that we receive about the things that we defend passionately, but it's also about how we come to people who are asking questions. And that's the thing, is that I think that the more that we can think about people who are trolls as people who are asking questions and there is an opportunity to learn. I mean, I think, Twitter is a wasteland, I think, for this issue, but I think Facebook's better. Certainly emails are great. But I think, that these are the things that you defend passionately and that are the things that you're willing to fight for, and that's really important. Okay, so how does it feel to have somebody tell you that you're wrong? How does it feel inside? Feels bad, feels neutral. Some people are like, it's fine, you can tell me I'm wrong. But there's a lot of folks who are definitely on that sad side, right? So this is also what people encounter when trolls, are trolls are told that something is wrong, right? And that it just agitates you more. It makes you more traumatized. It makes you shut down, right? So, nobody's in the green category. Nobody feels great. I'm like, I feel great when somebody tells me I'm wrong. But really remember that, when somebody tells you you're wrong, and that is really what happens when you engage, right? With anybody who doesn't believe in your issue, they're also feeling that trauma, right? They're feeling that thing of like, well, you're just telling me, you're just not telling me what I want to hear. And it just doesn't feel good. So I really hope that everybody takes from this presentation, and we'll talk about how to do this, but to encounter trolls with empathy. So what's empathy? So empathy is a choice. Empathy is that idea that it's you and me and we're coming together, and that I am seeing your trauma and your pain and hoping to build a bridge that we can both come together and understand something new and different. And I don't think it's about you giving up ground, and it's certainly not about them giving up ground, but it's about having a healthy conversation so that you can learn more about your issue, you can learn more about how to build better messages, and that you can learn more about how somebody else is seeing your issue and seeing the things that you defend passionately. Okay, so why bother, right? Like, why is any of this worth it? It definitely feels like that when you open up your Twitter and you get a bunch of awful comments. So, I think there's different layers of comments. I think that when somebody's like, you're gross, you're dumb, I think there's slander, right? There's definitely slander that is not useful. But I do think there's a lot of opportunities of folks who are asking questions or posting things online that you can gently inform and really have a conversation with. So why bother? So, it's good experience. I think, truly that most people do believe and support what you agree with. And however, there might be some days that you encounter negative comments. That it's good to remind yourself that you're not the ivory tower of perfection, and that there are people who don't believe in you. And that the good experience really does come into learning somebody else's perspective and learning how you can build better messages to attack and really undo those thoughts. That it's our duty to correct misinformation. So absolutely, as nonprofit communicators, it is our job to protect the credibility of your organization. It is your job to hold the truth for your organization. So you can't just let awful comments be on your social channels. You just can't. And that sharing misinformation is just not, it's not acceptable. It's just not okay. It's just not something that you should allow with your organization. And then also that we have a lot of work to do. I think, nonprofit communicators, we can always make stronger messages. We can always make better, pithy things to say, and we can always find better facts to share, and that, that you're meeting your mission. There's a lot to do, and that the middle isn't good enough, right? That staying in the middle isn't getting anything done. So I'm going to go ahead and go check in on questions. So if you have any questions so far, you can go and pop them in the question thing, or you can raise your hand on the attendees thing, and I will unmute you. Okay. So if you don't speak about it later, can you speak to folks getting political in your feeds not related to your mission? So politics are a big part of our life. I know nobody wants to say that politics are part of our life. It's a good old Southern thing, right? That you don't talk about religion or politics. But I think you can always have a good exit phrase. And so we're going to talk about exit phrases. But I think that, if you're striving to be a nonpartisan organization, then that's the easiest way to get rid of that, right? Is saying like, we respect everybody's opinions. We're a nonpartisan organization. We're trying to, kind of toe the line of being respectful and useful to all sides of the aisle. I think that's, kind of a great way of diffusing that quickly. So I usually just hide negative comments on Facebook. Is it better to hide or delete them or address them? So I would say, so slanderous comments, we definitely hide them. We like hide because it allows people to still see their comment, but other people don't. So they still feel heard, but they don't do any damage. So if they're actually slanderous, I just delete them. If they're some weird statement or it just doesn't make sense, I will definitely hide them. And then if it's something to address, I will address it. I will say, thank you so much. It's an opportunity to bring more education to the conversation through that question. So in vaccine work, if there was anything that was in our kind of standard FAQs that we had on the website and that somebody was like, MMR vaccine causes autism, and I could just copy and paste, I would put that on the question, because it allows to expand the conversation about your work in the comments. And, it might honestly educate that person. They might not. I mean, they might be awful people, but, that's how that goes. How should we use the hide feature? So talked about that. And then one more question, and then I'm going to go back. So what about when people are slandering you on non-owned or public forums? So I would report comments. So if it's on Facebook, I report those comments if we see those, and make sure that Facebook is aware of that organization. Facebook's been doing a very good job of cleaning up, honestly, dangerous organizations. They're gonna get in a lot of trouble for that around a lot of things, but they are policing groups right now, so that's something to think about where you are on those issues. And then I think there is always an opportunity of creating groups of people who will help you go add more positive comments. So that's something that's happened in the vaccine movement. So anti-vaccine folks have organized and attacked doctors' offices and posted lots and lots and lots of awful comments on their, Yelp accounts and on their Facebook reviews and things like that. And then those organizations will organize a counterattack. So they will get people who like their doctor's office to come in and drop in a bunch of comments, and then ask people to upvote them and things like that. So that helps really, really well on things that you can't control, is getting basically a posse of positive people to come in and take care of your comments. Okay. I'm going to move on, and then I promise to answer more questions later. So what is the first step? So you know that you're controversial. So what are kind of the things you have to have in place to have a really good comment policy? So the first thing is to be prepared. So community rules are huge. So if you do not have community rules posted on your website, on your Facebook, on any of your outlets that allows you to drop a note in there, it's really, really important, because before, and even if you're in the middle of this and you're in a crisis, adding community rules allows you to block users when it's time. So, that use it something that's, easy to update and easy for you to follow, and that it really helps in letting you allow to block people, right? And block people who are dangerous. So in your handouts, if you toggle down in the handouts on the control panel, I actually have the first handout is my community rules. And then also we have another kind of decision tree that we'll talk about later. So do have sample community rules to download. So these are our sample rules. This is our community rules for the National HPV Vaccination Roundtable. And we talk about both what we want people to do and what we don't want them to do. This document has been incredibly useful in a group that we manage. So we manage a group for HPV vaccination advocates. And since January, it has been wonderfully infiltrated by a bunch of folks who are HPV cancer survivors. which is fantastic for the cause. It is really, really great. But we're getting a bunch of questions and comments that we do not want on there. There's a bunch of questions and comments about how people are reading their results, how people are dealing with their own diagnosis and treatment. It's just a lot of stuff that is not safe or appropriate to be shared on an advocacy group. You know, we're not doctors, we're not nurses, even. I don't have a medical degree. So this community rules has been incredibly helpful for helping guide the conversation in the group. It has allowed us to delete comments that are not appropriate. It has allowed us to bounce folks who are honestly spammers, who are just trying to sell their free herbal treatment for HIV medication because that's real close to HPV. It's been really, really helpful to have these community rules. So in your drop down, you're able to get those. Cool. And you can use that document and modify the document however you wish. Okay, so the next step is really about triaging the question. So on the second page of that document is kind of my triage tree. So the first thing you want to do when you see that awful comment is really relax. You know, you really want to take a deep breath and stay calm. Remember that you are the one that has the scientific professionalism on your side, and that it's your job to defend the credibility of your organization without getting into an argument and being unproductive. You know, I think take the high road, right? Take the high road, and that this is your opportunity to shine with your professionalism. You know, don't stoop down to somebody's level. The next thing is to really stop and really listen to the question. So quickly we want to say our answer and not listen to people. And that is the heart of most problems with arguments, right? Is that somebody at some point says, well, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. You aren't really listening to me. And I think this power to be able to stop and really listen to the questions being asked in an argument is key, and especially when you're at work and you get to respond on the time that you need to take, right? So really listen to the question, really pull it apart. You know, that often people who are trolls will ask you 2 to 3 questions at once, and you need to break it down, you know, and really address it. Be like, thank you. I see that there's actually 3 questions, and let me address them individually. So there's also kind of two types of negative comments online, and I think we all kind of have the same visceral response to them, but there's definitely 2 different things. There's questions that are phrased in a negative way. So, you know, they may be well-intentioned, but they're antagonistic. You know, they're provocative and nitpicky. These are the types of questions that are directed to links on your website and other resources. So when we worked in bird conservation, we had a gentleman who was very specific about bird species. And he would comment a lot saying that either it wasn't the right species, or that isn't where that could possibly be, or, I mean, that tree in the background isn't the right thing, you know, and those sort of folks, right? Like our folks who are just a little specific in their feedback. And these ones are great to, you know, really direct them to websites, you know, links on your website, like give them more information, or just honestly say, you're right, I got that wrong, let me fix it. And then there's these overtly rude or misleading comments. So these are the comments that are hostile to your organization, they're harmful to your community, and they contain misleading information about, you know, vaccination science, your issue. And now you're really looking at, you want to enforce this 2 strikes and you're out type of rule with these individuals. So in that download, on that same PDF that had the community rules, on the next page is my decision tree about how you can address comments. So really looking at, is the question, is it phrased just negatively, or is it rude? And kind of just, you know, work down that path. And I think, yeah, overtly rude, kind of just awful people is, yeah, first strike, you know, hide their comment, reply, you know, the reminder of the community rules, and then third strike, block them, just get rid of them however you can. You know, and then there's other folks are people who there's some opportunity for education. You know, it's people who you can be kind and guide them to resources. You know, if they still ask questions, Offer to move them into direct messages or, to a conversation private on the phone. You don't have to continue to engage them in their chosen form of communication. Try to get them on the phone. Try to get them to, go into direct messages. And then, if they've stopped asking questions, then, congrats, you informed another person about your mission. I think, it's really about this moment of really thinking about, is this somebody I could educate, or is this somebody who I really just need to get rid of? And then I think with all of these, addressing with all of this is really about answering these questions with heart. And again, you want to speak from a place of empathy. You know a lot about your mission. You know a lot about the struggles of the people who are dealing with the things that impact your clients and your mission in your organization. And that it's hard when people attack you on those things. But I do think that coming from a place of empathy will help move these really negative conversations to a place of more neutrality and more opportunity to open up and to learn. When I interact with my friends that I don't believe with on my Facebook page, this is my goal, right? Is that I want to get us both to a place of neutrality so that we can talk about these issues in a way that opens up both of our minds and our hearts. And sometimes I just shut it down, but most of the time I really do work hard on having empathy. So using I statements is huge, right? So I statements make a connection. So trying something like, I hear you have a concern. Here's some information that I have from my organization, and then send them to a credible source in your opinion. I think that's something that's interesting about interacting with my libertarian friend is that she discounts news outlets all the time as folks who are not credible sources. So it's been really, really interesting in trying to find what her credible sources are and finding and sharing information with her in that way so that it opens up that door of neutrality and empathy. You don't have to have all the answers, that you can use phrases to redirect the conversation for somebody that's just asking too many questions. So it's like, I don't have the answer to that, but you could check out our website, try, another organization's website, talk to your doctor, talk to your legislator. I think there's a lot of ways of also deflecting hot comments from your organization of like, yep, you're right. We don't have the answer to that. I really hope that you find the answer someplace else. Okay, then there's also ending the conversation. And I use this a lot. I use it in professional conversations and then in personal conversations. But, that you really want to have an exit phrase in your back pocket that allows you to end a conversation quickly. So you could say something like, wow, I can see that we're both really passionate about this topic. And I just, that we both just want to do what's best for humanity, dogs, insert issue here, period. I hope you enjoy your day. It's like, I'm done talking to you. And I think sometimes you do have to get to the point of, I can't spend more time talking to you about this issue. And I hope you enjoy your day. I come back to this, I hope you enjoy your day phrase a lot of getting people to move on a little bit. So yeah, empathy is a choice. And that honestly about dealing with tough issues and dealing with your organization's toughest questions, that if you can move people to that place of common ground and that place of neutrality, it does open minds and hearts. And, you're probably not going to win them over. And that's not the goal. The goal is not to necessarily change, fully change people's hearts and minds, but it is to open them up a little bit. It's that this work and changing people's minds and change behavior is about planting seeds. And it's about planting that opportunity for a conversation in the future. It's about planting that opportunity that new science or new information can make a difference in that person's life. It's about planting that seed that can grow into a different, changed reality for that person and for your organization. And it really is a powerful thing that we can do in managing comments, and that there are so much wonderful opportunities to have tough conversations. And you know what? We can do hard things, and this is one of them. And I do think that the more that we're able to approach these kind of tough conversations with empathy, openness, and the ability to really listen here and inform folks, just the better that our whole society will be. Okay, so I'm going to go on and answer a bunch of questions that I see. And then also, if you want to raise your hand. Oh, is there somebody who raised their hand? Let's see. Oh, Sarah raised her hand. Let me answer a question first. Let me see. Okay. How can we handle arguments about religion when you're not a religious organization? So example, if someone says Jesus says to help the poor, when someone says that Jesus says no handouts, seriously, this has happened. Okay. I think it is about the exit phrase for you. I think it's a good idea to just jump immediately to the exit phrase of, that we're a neutral belief organization, and that everybody interprets their own faith in different ways. And I hope you have a great day. I think, I think there's also certain things that if they're off mission, you don't need to answer them, right? Like, I think that, or you could bring it to modern day of like, well, now it's really important that we give food to folks because there's so much need. And then drop in a fact there that, 1 in 4 kids are having trouble finding food. So, that sort of thing. Okay, Sarah, are you ready to ask your question? I'm going to unmute you right now. Okay, go, Sarah.
Great, thank you. So I'm the communications manager at a sustainability organization in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we rarely get negative comments. We rarely get many comments in general. So I'm curious, I think there are definitely some polarizing elements of our work. Like we do talk a lot about climate change, but just rarely get those negative comments. I'm curious if you would, obviously not having seen what we do, say that that's kind of like, should we be posting more things that would move us out of the middle to get more of that kind of pushback, or do you think that's a good sign, or what would you say to that kind of lack of pushback in our communications?
Yeah, it really depends on where your organization wants to fall. So a lot of organizations that we work with in conservation issues really do want to be in the middle. They want to be, as nonpartisan as possible. And if you want to be seen as that organization, then that's a good thing that you're not getting a lot of negative comments. I think you're hitting the middle. The activist in me says that you're probably not doing a lot of effective work being firmly in the middle, right? That I think that you do need to lean one side or the other, and that if your organization wants to appeal to one side or the other, that that you should experience more negative comments. Also, online, it could mean that you've been very good at curating an audience that completely agrees with you. That maybe you haven't been working hard enough to find folks who are kind of in the middle, and folks who are kind of on the fringe that could believe in your issue, but you're just not really attracting them. So, if you've worked really hard on attracting a very specific type of audience, say 45 to 65 educated folks in certain, ethnic groups that believe in you, and maybe they're all Democrats or, progressive side, that's also why, right? Is that you have a very tightly knit, very closed echo chamber of people who believe in you, and are not going to really kind of push you either way or the other. And I mean, it's scary, right? It's scary to get negative comments. A lot of executive directors don't want them, and they don't want to post things that could draw fire. So it just really depends on how your organization should be. Do you want to be nonpartisan? Do you want to be in the middle? Do you want to be someplace where everybody feels welcome? Or do you want to be more activist and you want to push one way or the other? Okie dokie. Let's see. Okay. What suggestions do you have for encouraging people to comment positively about an organization when they have gotten support from when there is an embarrassment factor? So Abby, so I feel like it is always a really good idea that if you have a issue that is controversial and you get a lot of comments, that you really do want to create a positive posse, because it's just good people for you to be able to call on. So you can train them to be online advocates. You can give them great facts and nice things to say, and then send them an email when you need help, encouraging people to comment on things. And definitely trolls will feel like that's disingenuous, or that they're paid protesters, or all the things that we've all heard over the last 4 years. But it's also the reality of how things work, right? And that I think that people often have to be invited to give positive comments. It's a weird thing about human nature that people naturally go to negative, and that we naturally just want to complain about stuff, but we never say like good job. Like we never like take an opportunity to say, to thank people all the time. It's something that I do a lot personally, because I do work in this like negative comment space, is that I put positive comments on people's photos all the time. Or like our poor beleaguered teacher, where we have a first grader, and I publicly post little notes that she's doing a good job on our Remind app and all the other apps that people are dealing with right now. I think that people need to be reminded to say positive things, and that's why you ask your kids to say please and thank you, right? It is not something that we naturally do as human beings. And so you have to remind people, so having a positive posse, or whatever you want to call them, is a really great idea if you're having an issue that's very controversial. Okay, what social listening tools do you use for nonprofits? So we have, we're slow to this game. It's a hard thing for us to listen to all of our clients' tools. So I think, because we have usually 12 to 15 different nonprofits that we're working with at one time. So it's the tools that I've seen best. You can always we do a lot of hashtag monitoring. So using the hashtag tools that are free or slightly paid are pretty helpful for just kind of getting the temperature on an issue. And then we definitely, when I was working deeply in vaccine work, that we were tracking every single comment that we got, and also did searches on the organizational name and things like that. So yeah, I think there's definitely tools out there. There's cheaper tools, but the hashtag things are pretty handy for getting a good measure and a good temperature. Exit phrase, I do believe that we did that. Let's see. Do you have any examples or toolkits of creating advocacy research for constituents or board members? Absolutely. This is something we love to do at BCDC Ideas, is we create communications packages about pretty much every single project that we help a nonprofit launch. So in those kits, we always have sample posts that people can just copy paste, that there's images that go with it, that there is sometimes FAQs. So if we know that our clients are going to be encountering certain questions about an issue, that we'll create a behind the scenes FAQ that's very detailed, that is more meant for board members and folks like that to know and be able to have in their back pocket if they're having conversations. And then that is all released at the same time that you release your campaign. This can also be if it's crisis management, right? Like crisis management kits should also have FAQs in them. They should have kind of your basic facts about your organization, your stances on controversial issues, and how you want to manage those things. So we do this a lot. Michelle, I'll have to have you think if there's any good public ones out there, anybody that we've done recently. if you want to think about that and add that to the chat. If not, I can definitely send it to folks too. Cool. So yeah, I mean, I think I had a question about the exit phrase. It's something that is really powerful. It's to have a way to end a conversation. And I think it's good in your own life, with your own, life with your own kids and husbands and wives and partners and parents, whoever you're arguing with, right? That you have a phrase that you're done with. Something I do when I'm done talking to my friends, even on Facebook, is I just send them a funny GIF of like, I usually end a lot of conversation with GIFs. I'm just like, okay, I'm done. I have any words left. But yeah, having that exit phrase is huge. And then to the poll that we have up right now, so are you ready to have kind online conversations? Yay, most people say hell yes. Also notice that I didn't give a negative option, right? That I think a lot of feedback and a lot of this is controlling the world that you want to see, and I think that by answering questions and that sort of thing is really your opportunity to control the world that you have. So I do have some great links here, and also in the PDF in my handout is this whole presentation. So they're all there. And then this is me. So if you need to ask me any additional questions or anything like that, please send me an email, and y'all know who I am. So I would love to hear from you, and I hope you all have a great day. Talk to you soon.